Hey everybody, this is Polish Pete, and this is Pete's Secret Stash. So here at the shop, everybody kind of asked me some of the things that I would be willing to talk about, or that are some things that me and my friends do that usually fly a little under the radar, some things we do that are a little different. Some things that we've had success with, or just whether it's tackle, whether it's a technique, whether it's something like that. This Secret Stash series is just something that I found a lot of confidence in that's not exactly super mainstream. And as far as the bait goes, today we're talking about the Damiki DC family. This right here is a DC 300 that I've got tied on that I've been fishing with lately, hence it's all a little nicked up and banged up, and the 200 as well. So two different sizes in this bait. One's fishing in that like 6 to 10 foot range, and one of them's going, this thing's getting down to like that 12 to 15 foot range in the 300. But there's a little different way I'm fishing them than typically. This bait's already popular. It's won a lot of money. A lot of tournament anglers fish this bait. It catches everything from giant largemouth, which you've seen Chad Pipkins do on Lake Fork with this bait, all the way up to smallmouth country where I live in the northern parts of the country. This is a heck of a little smallmouth snack. It's a small crankbait that gets extremely deep for its size. Therefore, it's a high hookup ratio with this bait. They tend to get the bait a lot better because it's so small. Something I'm doing with it that's a little different than typically I think the bait was necessarily targeted for, but something I think this bait very sneaky shines at, and that's coming through grass. Up in my neck of the woods, something that's very popular is an Ozarks bait called the Wiggle Wart. That bait is known for its crazy wide wobbling action and kind of hunting action that it has, and covering water in those Ozark lakes. But up in Minnesota, where I'm from, we call it ripping a wart or fishing a wart, where you're cracking that wiggle wart through the grass. For years now, I've been trying different crankbaits to see where I could have some success doing that, and I found a real home for this bait with that. This is my confidence bait when it comes to ripping grass. That's actually physically throwing this bait over the top of submerged vegetation, on the edges of immersed vegetation that's all the way up. Anywhere there's grass and I want to get this bait to either run through the top of the grass or along the edges of the grass and rip it out, I've found this bait to be a killer. Couple things I do to the crankbait in particular is I'll practice with the stock hooks on it. The stock hooks that come on it are absolutely awesome. They're fine. It's a little tricky. I found that the number 7 Ichikawa, or sorry, the number 8 Ichikawas really do replace the stock trebles on the 300 very well. But I actually will go to the number 6 short shanks a lot in the Ichikawas. If I'm fishing, the type of line I use, and I'll get into that why. But it's because I can up my hook size, and the hooks don't hook up with each other all the time. That's where the advantage of that short shank comes in. If you want to up your hook size, you can go to the short shank style hook, and you can actually put bigger size hooks than the stock factory trebles are, because you're not getting the length out of the shaft on the shank there, so they don't hang up on each other a lot. When it comes to the little 200, which is actually the one I've had a lot more success with this year in the vegetation, as the summer's gotten later, I'm fishing a little bit deeper. That grass is growing out a little deeper, and that's why I'm switching to that 300 right now. But that early season grass that's out there, the curly pondweed and things like that, that's when this thing, I liked it quite a bit for that. And that early spring milfoil, fishing that when it's not up all the way and not all surfaced up, I like this little 200 for that. This one, you want to go to those number 8s for that rear treble, and I can go to a bigger short shank hook on the front if I'd like than the stock one, because they do run 2 different size trebles on the 200. So I would experiment with your hooks. Use what you're confident in. I think the Ichikawa's got my favorite treble hooks on the market right now, as far as a aftermarket treble hook to switch your crankbait trebles out with. But back to like the system I'm fishing it with. This year in particular, I've kind of found a real home with fishing graphite again on a crankbait, and especially with this technique. to all my cranking buddies out there that makes them sick, they're all glass guys. Glass, 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 glass. Super moderate action glass crankbait rods do up your landing percentage. My issue with a glass rod when fishing grass is sometimes I don't know that my crankbait has either picked up grass on those trebles. I can't necessarily feel that it's impeding the action of my treble hook. So you get that whole long cast out there that you're reeling back and you got grass on it. I think it makes it harder to clear that grass as well. That's obviously a personal thing. I'm probably just not good enough and fished with glass enough to get good at that. But what I found for me that's given me a lot of confidence is fishing a graphite crankbait rod. Because I think that deflection the rod blank gets when I crack on it really hard and rip on it, I can clear that crankbait of the grass, I can bust it off the vegetation and get that reaction bite that I want to get when it's coming through that grass, hangs up in that vegetation, and I really smack on the rod but it comes off. But you obviously need a soft enough crankbait rod that when the fish comes and bites that bait, they're going to get the trebles in them and you're not going to pull the bait away, you're going to get good hook penetration. I switched this year to the Daiwa BLX 7.3 medium light. I actually fished with it a bunch last year for the same technique, but I was doing it a little different. I was fishing straight fluorocarbon on it. I actually switched this year on this particular rod to something I've been doing for a while with different crankbait rods, and that's running Braid to a fluorocarbon leader. So I've actually got a fluorocarbon leader on this bait right now. This is one I've actually been fishing with a lot lately, and I've got it down to 12-pound fluorocarbon on it currently. So 12-pound fluorocarbon is perfect for me for ripping a crankbait out of the grass if you're fishing sparser grass or grass that's a little softer, if that makes any sense, stuff that I'm not really hanging that crankbait in really hard and having to rip it through really hard. It works great. I think I get the bait a little deeper and I can clean the grass off it really easy, and I never break this stuff. It's really easy for me to tie leaders of the 12-pound and I have confidence I'm not breaking it. I will go up to 15 if I found the fish up over the top of coontail, and I might be in deep water with the boat, but the coontail's grown up so high in the water column that I'm not trying to get the bait super deep, and I'm hitting really thick vegetation. The 15-pound just makes you feel a little better about being rougher with the crankbait, and when you're really cracking on it, you're not worried about breaking your line if you do hook up a big one in that situation. 131 braid. I know some of you have seen people talk about this. That's Fighter's the one who got me to try this stuff. This is the best braid I've fished to date. It is expensive, I know, but it's worth it to all of you who've already fished braid and have confidence with it to try it. Try one spool. It doesn't hold its color the absolute best, but it is the roundest, smoothest, strongest braid I've fished. It casts a mile, and I can downsize my braid. I'm very confidently now fishing heavy braided line applications that I would normally fish 50 and 65 pound in. I'm using in 30 and 40 in this, and it's even thinner than traditional braids, even though I don't tout it as that, but I think y'all back me up if you try it. It's thin stuff. But I've actually got 30 pound on this right now, and then I've got a 12-pound fluorocarbon leader on it, and I'm getting that distance. The casting distance on this, because of that braid, is unreal. I've got the new Daiwa Zillion on there right now in a 7:1 gear ratio, which is a little faster crankbait fishing. But this particular technique, I'm not trying to get this crankbait to a deep depth and slow roll it on the bottom and try and really slow myself down. I'm actually able to get this crankbait to the depth I need it in really only a few cranks of the reel, and I'm covering a lot of water while I'm doing this, so the boat's kind of moving and I'm fishing it on a bow sometimes, and that 7:1 keeps that crankbait moving. I can always feel what's going on with it with a little bit faster speed, and when I do clear it from that grass and bust it through the vegetation, I can keep cleaning up slack line as fast as I need to, that 7:1. If I was in more open water situations, I totally get the need to maybe slow it down. But I think for this particular application, the 7:1 actually is an advantage to me crankbait fishing with that speed in the reel. Being it is that New Zillion, it casts a country freaking mile, so I can bomb this thing absolutely out of sight. I can actually throw it down to my backing if I want to. farther than I can actually break it free of the grass. So to put it in perspective, I don't need to even throw it as far as I'm throwing, but why not if you can? I can throw it as far as I need to, which makes it really effortless to throw this thing all day long. When I'm throwing a crankbait rod that is so light like this thing is, it's actually a joy to fish with. I'm not fighting my crankbait equipment all day long because it's heavy and cumbersome, and I'm having a hard time freeing it up of the vegetation as I'm cracking it through the grass. This thing's action is so soft because of the medium light, but it actually does have some tip to it. So it helps me fish the bait properly, but it's soft enough that I'm landing my fish that I'm hooking. Knock on wood. I've been able to have a pretty great landing percentage with it, and even though a true crankbait angler is going to want to throw up, listen to me say this, braid to a fluorocarbon leader with a crankbait, I've found it to be where my confidence lies. I've actually had more success doing it this way than I have fishing straight fluoro or even straight braid and a snap and things that other people have told me to do. The braid and fluorocarbon has turned into a real asset for me with this system. So just to review real quick, as you know, my system for fishing in the grass is that Damiki DC 200, the Damiki DC 300, depending on the depth of your vegetation. If you're fishing deeper than I'd say 10 foot of water, 10 to 15 foot of water even, I would definitely go for that 300. The 200 to me from the spring months, and I'll bet you later into the fall months, is going to be where I think it shines. In fact, if I were to try one of either of these two, it'd be the 200. I think it's extremely versatile. It's small and it does get down there really good. I would get yourself some premium treble hooks if you're going to do this in a tournament. You don't need to right out of the box if you're just going out there and fun fishing and trying. But I would get some good fluorocarbon you're confident in for leader material. I'd recommend trying it in 12 and 15 pound. Some good braided line. Get yourself a fancy little Japanese reel like the Zillion there, and then and the BLX rod in a medium light. It really does become a joy to fish. So it's not just an effective tool on the water, but it's actually fun to fish with. I'm sure there's a lot of similar like products out there that don't have obviously the price tag this associated with this one, but if you're into that kind of stuff, if you're into some higher end tackle, I highly recommend, if you're a moving bait angler with treble hooks and you haven't tried that BLX 7.3 medium light, give that thing a shot. And if you just want to cast a mile and never backlash, which I haven't yet, again, knock on wood with this reel, try out that Daiwa Zillion in a 7 1-1 if you're ripping grass. In the meantime, go catch them.